to be tying today is one that we call the Twisted Mister. It's an articulated streamer pattern, and it's a fantastic bass pattern. The hook I have in the vise is a Mustad 3407 in a size 1. And I'm using a UTC Ultra in black. And I'm just going to start at the front of the hook there and work my way back. Doesn't have to be too clean. For the tail, I'm going to tie in one plume of black marabou. I want that tail to be about the length of the hook shank. There you go. Trim out that excess. Clean up. Now I'm going to take my thread back again. Okay, the body is going to be large Palmer chenille. I'm using both black and brown. And I'm going to cut 2 sections. Doesn't take as much as you think, so your sections you only need to cut about 4 or 5 inches or so, and then trim a little bit off the front so that you have a tie-in point. And I'll go ahead and tie in that black. Then I'll cut another section of the brown. Do the same with it, prep that front and tie it in. We're going to tie those in nice and tight. And then advance your thread back up to the front here and leave yourself a little bit of room. So I'm going to come back about an eye length or half an eye length or so back. Okay, now I'm going to take my 2 pieces of Palmer chenille and I'm going to lay them side by side, and I'm going to start wrapping those in. And as you do that, the collars will mix and match with each other, give you kind of a nice little mottled look. Then I'll come in and trim out that excess. Save these. These have lots of fly tying applications. We make worm patterns, caddis patterns, merger patterns, all kinds of stuff with these extra pieces. Now that you got that tied in, just come in with a comb or Velcro or whatever you have and fluff all this out. You can see this stuff is really long and really big, which is exactly what we want. Now for this part, what I like to do is actually whip finish and cut my thread out. We'll be bringing that back later. Now just grab these fibers and pull them up and cut down on a little bit of an angle, giving it a taper. Some long fibers coming off the rear will not hurt a thing. Just be vigilant and try not to cut out your marabou as you trim. But this will get much easier to trim as you get the bulk of this stuff out of the way. Then you can really see what you're doing. But we're just going to trim this stuff down considerably. Again, just kind of bring it down to a bit of a taper. So tapering larger, going back like a rear half of a minnow. I'll switch up scissors here. These are a little sharper. Doesn't have to be perfect here. Just trim that down a little bit. There we go. Okay, and you could actually fish this as is, and it would fish fine. Guarantee you, you're going to bust smallmouth off that. But we'll take it to the next level here. Okay guys, so the hook I put in the vise here next is just a big 3/0 bait holder hook. This is actually going to be sacrificed and cut off, so it really doesn't matter what you use. You can use a shank if you want, but this is a much cheaper way to go. So that's why I like to use these. And what we're going to do is we're going to tie in some large eyes right up here at the front. And I'm going to get them relatively tight, and then I'm going to spin them around. You can give those a shot of super glue if you wish. Now I'm going to advance my thread back. Once you got your thread at the back, we're going to tie in a section of bead-alon wire, or whatever articulation wire you like to use. And if you want, you can give that a shot of super glue or some Sally's, whatever you want to help bind that down a little bit. Can't hurt. Okay, and now we'll bring in the section we tied before. Beads aren't really necessary. You can put some on there if you wish to get you a little bit of a spacer, but it's not a necessity. So we'll tie that in coming off the rear. Advance up, make sure we really got that wire tied in. Pull that back, tie it down some more, and this guy's not going anywhere. Once that Sally sets up, be good to go. Now we're going to do the same thing with the Palmer chenille, brown and black. Takes about the same amount, and we'll clean up the front sections just like we did before to give us a tie-in point. Tie this in right at the rear, and advance your thread up to behind your eyes. Okay, and I'm going to lay these right beside each other, begin my wraps. And I'll stop just behind those lead eyes, capture that and tie it down. Trim out that excess so we can see what's going on here. Get everything worked out. You can see it's super bushy. Again, that's what we want. And again, I'll come in and trim. And now this front part we want to leave pretty bulky, so you don't want to trim this down as much as you did the rear. Get some of these under control. If you got to wrap back on these a little bit, you can. Perfectly fine. Help tame them down some. And I'll leave generally quite a few more wispy fibers here on the front piece than I would on the back, just to help hide that articulation point. And you don't have to focus too much on it and be too perfect with it, because all this really blends together super well once this is in the water. So don't worry about being uber tidy with trimming it. You can drive yourself crazy doing that. So you can see I've got some longer fibers in here. I've left it a lot bushier than the rear, and this stuff really lays down nicely in the water. It's going to give you a great little bait fish profile, and it's a good way to make a nice shiny bulky fly without too much bulk. This stuff sheds water great. Okay, now I'm going to come in and tie in some rubber legs. I'm using 4. I've got a few white and 1 yellow. Since this fly is so dark, I like to add a little splash of color with the legs. You can use legs that are a little more in tune with your collar scheme, but me personally, I like to use the legs as an opportunity to throw in a little bit of collar. Okay, so I tied those legs in on my side and then just doubled them over and tied them in on the opposite side. And for the head, it's going to just be one of my staples, a good old wool head. Grab some wool, card it up, set it on there, put a couple wraps through it, and then do the same thing on the bottom just below it. No need to be bashful, use plenty. And just a couple wraps there, and push all that back, then advance your thread up. And I don't think I'm going to get another wrap right there, so I'll just advance to in front of those eyes. And get a nice big healthy clump in there, and that should compensate for the eyes nicely. And one more bunch on the bottom. You should have all kinds of chaos and pandemonium here. Now I'll just palmer all that back and get my thread wraps in there in front of it. And then I'll go ahead and whip finish. Just like so. Done deal. Now I'll come in with a dubbing brush or Velcro, whatever you've got handy, whatever you like to use, and just brush that out. I like to brush the top portions up, side portions down. Helps keep it a little more organized, easier to navigate. So then we'll just grab all that, pull it up, and cut it on an angle like so, so that it's skinnier towards the front and heavier towards the back. That'll give you that nice bait fish profile on the head. And the sides I just shear down to where the eyes are visible. And again, it's just like that Palmer chenille. Once you get the bulk of it out there, it's a lot easier to see what you're doing, so just kind of take it slow at first. There it is, guys. Nice movement, tons of flash. Those rubber legs give it all kinds of movement in the water. And smallmouth crush this bad boy. And we've just never tried it on trout. It very well would probably produce. We just haven't got that far yet. What I like to do here is I'll get all my materials out of the way and then come in with some cutters and just cut that front hook out, just leaving the rear hook. That rear stinger hook is more than enough for hookups, so you're not having to fight with 2 hooks. Much easier on the fish and much easier on you if you're a catch and release fisherman. So that's it, guys. Great little fly. We can cut a pile of fish off of them, tie some up, give them a try, like, subscribe, let us know what you think. Tight lines.